Truly urgent news. The United States of America is indeed deploying troops to Iran to seize Kharg and more. The US has decided to speed up the deployment of amphibious ships and thousands of Marines to the Middle East amid the ongoing military operation against Iran. Sources in the White House have acknowledged that Trump has indeed made the decision for a ground invasion of Iran. Among the options being discussed are landing troops on the coast of the Strait of Hormuz to ensure the safe passage of tankers, sending ground units to Kharg Island, through which up to 90% of Iran's oil exports pass, as well as seizing Iran's stockpiles of highly enriched uranium. And now Axios has released news today that I basically expected. American ground forces are planning to seize the Iranian island of Kharg in order to weaken the Ayatollah regime and unblock the Strait of Hormuz. And this means that the war is indeed moving to a new level. My name is Pechiy. Friends, if you like this content, if you want to support the work of our YouTube channel, I would be grateful for that. You can do this financially by making any donation using the links and details in the description of this video. It says there, support the Pechiy channel. Choose any method that is convenient for you. I will be grateful for your support. Do this at the end of this episode if you think this information was useful and interesting for you, and also subscribe to my Telegram channel Pechiy News. The link to it is also in the description of this video. So, the United States of America is urgently deploying thousands of Marines to the Middle East to begin a ground operation in Iran, according to sources in the White House. Trump decided to speed up the deployment of landing ships and thousands of Marines to the Middle East amid the ongoing military operation against Iran. In particular, it is reported that the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit, which includes at least 2,200 Marines, will leave San Diego ahead of schedule in the coming days. The troops will be stationed aboard the amphibious assault ship USS Boxer, but as it turns out, this is just the beginning. Along with the aforementioned ship, two more amphibious transport ships, the USS Portland and the USS Comstock, will head to the shores of Iran. They are supposed to transport to the destination and, most importantly, F-35 fighters missiles and equipment for landing troops ashore. This only proves that Trump has indeed decided to invade Iran. The fleet will pass through the Indo-Pacific region to the Middle East, where it will join the amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli. Later, the cruiser USS New Orleans and the dock landing ship USS Rushmore will also join the operation. As a result, the total number of personnel to be deployed to the conflict zone may reach about 8,000 servicemen, of which 5,000 are specifically Marines. I should note right away that today it became known that the United States of America has launched a military operation to unblock the Strait of Hormuz. In particular, the head of the United States Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, publicly stated that attack aircraft, American attack aircraft, and Apache helicopters are currently flying over the Strait of Hormuz, destroying these Iranian boats, striking the coastline, and so on and so on. And he pointed out that this is only preparation. A preparatory stage to clear the Strait of Hormuz so that after that, US Navy ships could enter there. And now, against the backdrop of this news, there is news that the landing force is still being urgently transferred in this direction. Earlier, sources from Reuters reported that the US presidential administration is considering sending additional troops to the Middle East for a ground operation against Iran. Among the options being discussed are landing troops on the coast of the Hormuz Strait to ensure the safe passage of tankers, sending ground units to the strategically important Kharg Island, through which up to 90% of Iran's oil exports pass, as well as seizing Iran's existing stockpiles of highly enriched uranium. The White House said earlier that President Donald Trump has not yet made a decision on sending additional ground troops. Trump claimed he doesn't plan a ground operation, but actions speak louder than words. In total, the American contingent in the Middle East already numbers about 50,000 troops. And here it should be recalled that at the beginning of the war, Trump stated that its goal was to protect the American people and their allies from threats coming from the Iranian regime. At the same time, the head of the White House was clearly counting on a quick and obvious victory. As you remember, he even prematurely declared that we had already won. According to White House forecasts, the war was not supposed to last longer than 4 to 6 weeks. But now the Trump administration is preparing for a more prolonged conflict. And the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, openly says that there is no longer any timeline for the war. Politico, in turn, writes that the U.S. Central Command, which oversees operations in the Middle East, is already preparing for the possibility that the military operation will drag on. It will last at least 100 days. And against this backdrop, Axios reports that American troops are planning to seize Iran's Kharg island, through which 90% of Iran's oil exports pass. Such a scenario of pressuring Tehran to weaken the Ayatollah regime and unblock the Strait of Hormuz is now being seriously considered by President Donald Trump. And here I will quote Axios. President Trump wants the strait. If he has to seize Kharg Island to do that, it will happen. If he decides to land troops on the coast, that will also happen. But the decision has not yet been made, said a senior Trump administration official. Let's pause here. I'll explain right away what Kharg Island is and why it's so important. In fact, Kharg is a tiny coral island. It's 8 kilometers long and 4 kilometers wide. So, Kharg Island. It's the center of the circulatory system that feeds the Iranian economy, and at the same time, it's the Achilles heel of the Iranian regime. There's a huge oil terminal on the island for loading tankers. But here's the irony. The oil terminal was actually built there before the Islamic Revolution by the American company Amoco in the 1960s, because the Iranian coastline is very shallow, and ports on the mainland just couldn't accommodate large tankers. So it was decided that the island had a great coastline, tankers could dock there, so let's just lay some pipes and build the terminal there. Once again, it was built by the Americans, whom the Iranians hate so much. The destruction of oil facilities or the occupation of the island would deprive Iran of its means of subsistence, but it would lead to a major escalation of the war. Because, on the one hand, it would almost certainly require sending American soldiers into Iranian territory, and on the other hand, it would give Iran a reason to bomb the oil fields, factories and ports of the Persian Gulf countries that haven't been attacked yet, which could lead to a months-long, if not years-long, global economic crisis. Trump doesn't want to bomb Kharg Island, and it's clear why. Trump has repeatedly said that he hopes for a transfer of power in Iran following the Venezuelan scenario to more compliant leaders. The destruction of Kharg would deprive the country of oil export revenues, and Iran would plunge into chaos no matter who is in charge. The occupation of the island would solve this issue, but for that, American soldiers need to be sent to Iran, which Trump seems to be doing right now. The terminal on the island is capable of handling between 5 and 7 million barrels per day. In addition to the terminal, there are oil storage facilities on the island. They can hold up to 28 million barrels. But, as I mentioned earlier, US troops could land not even on the island, but on the mainland, and still paralyze the operation of the terminal on the island. Let me explain what I mean. To do this, it's enough to bomb or capture the oil pumping station near the village of Gore in Bushehr province on the coast. Pipelines from this oil pumping station lead to the new Jask terminal in the Gulf of Oman, bypassing the Strait of Hormuz. And here's the most important point. The bypass route, this Jask terminal, was hardly used before the war. But it allows Iran to export at least 1 million barrels per day, which in turn allows for the mining of the Hormuz Strait with minimal damage to their own exports. Although, of course, there is another option, to impose a naval blockade of Kharg and not allow tankers to approach it. The legality of such actions has already been discussed by the US authorities with Pentagon lawyers. And since an operation to seize the island, which is located 24 kilometers from the coast, could put US troops under fire from the mainland, it will only begin after minimizing Iran's military potential in the Strait of Hormuz area. What? Let's get back to the news. And now they're preparing attack aircraft and Apache helicopters. According to American military estimates, they will need about a month to further weaken the Iranians with strikes before seizing Kharg Island. I should note that last Friday, American forces carried out massive airstrikes on dozens of military targets on Kharg Island, destroying specifically military objectives. But according to Trump, the US, quote, out of considerations of decency did not strike the oil infrastructure on the island. And as they assured at the time in Washington, that strike was a warning shot intended to persuade Tehran to unblock the Strait of Hormuz. But at the same time, that strike, and I think this is more likely, was a preparatory step aimed at weakening the military capabilities on the island, creating conditions for a potential ground operation. I'll stop here for now. Please share your thoughts and conclusions in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel. Perhaps you'd like to become a member of this YouTube channel. You can do that in the same place where you subscribe. And of course, like the video and click the bell. Anyway, friends, thank you for watching. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.